Oh, come on. We can go in for just a few minutes and we'll be just fine.
Nay, I shan't enter this party as we are currently in a plague. Besides, there be drugs and vapes in there, and I shall not partake.
We can just wear our masks. +3 against viral beholders.
I do not believe you are going to wear your mask the whole time that you're in there. You can't go 5 minutes without hitting your magical pipe.
Tally ho.
Take -5 modifier for your magical pipe.
What did I tell you?
Hi, are you here for the book swap? Well, that's wonderful. If you want to leave a book or take a book, maybe sit, read, and relax, it's all free here. Well, I mean, if you're feeling adventurous, we do have our blind date with a book selection, so you could try out something that you might not have considered. Book swap. Whether you want to give books, take books, sit, read, relax, or all of the above, it's always free. The book swap is located on the 6th floor Promenade alcove.
Please don't come to CONvergence if you're sick. And for sake, cover it when you cough or sneeze. Please wash your hands. Con crud is no joke for some of us. Please do not touch foodstuffs with your bare hands or feet. Do you want ghosts? This is how you get ghosts.
How you doing, little consumers? I just wanted to take a minute to thank each and every one of you little walking money bags for helping me keep my dying industry alive. You see, sometime within the last, I don't know, decade or so, smoking became less cool. Can you believe that? I couldn't. I was pretty sure I was going to have to start selling used cars. Or timeshares or something. But then, our scientists came up with something that saved our bacon. Vaping. I mean, it's got to be healthier, right? It ain't smoke, it's just steam or something. And don't you love that you can get your vape juices and all the flavors of candy that you loved as a kid? On top of that, when you vape, ain't no one can tell you when you get to use it or not. It'll drive your parents nuts. You're not supposed to do it, so doing it makes you cool. If James Dean was alive, he'd vape. So, let me give yous all the TRDL. I'm making money off of you wanting to be cool. So thanks for that.
Hi there, all you very nearly adults. I want to thank you for your positive responses to the advertising that was, okay, I admit it, between you and me, it was pointed right at you. I get to see so many of these, what do you call them, tiki-talks? You do all this. Give us money, free advertising, set yourselves up to be stuck on us forever. I love your support so much because it's so selfless. I mean, come on. You know, right? I don't care one bit about you. Enjoy our products.
Hey, Jim. How's it going?
Oh, hey, Greg. How are you?
I'm okay. What's going on? The Lions not moving?
No, I'm waiting to pick up my registration, and I think they just don't have very many volunteers right now.
Really? They're low on volunteers?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I got a couple hours free later. Do you think they'd let me volunteer?
Oh, yeah. Boy, they'd let just about anybody volunteer. It would be really helpful if you could do that.
Okay. Well, how do I sign up?
Oh, you just got to go up to volunteers, or you can probably just talk to one of the department heads right here, ask them if they need help, and they'll find a spot for you, I'm sure.
Well, maybe I'll talk to somebody to help with registration. I got a couple 3 hours later.
That's great. That would be really helpful.
All right. Well, maybe I'll see you later.
Sounds good.
All right.
Finger gun.
Oh, come on. We can go in for just a few minutes and we'll be just fine.
Nay, I shan't enter this party as we are currently in a plague. Besides, there be drugs and vapes in there, and I shall not partake.
We can just wear our masks. +3 against viral beholders.
I do not believe you are going to wear your mask the whole time that you're in there. You can't go 5 minutes without hitting your magical pipe.
Tally ho.
Take -5 modifier for your magical pipe.
What did I tell you?
Hi, are you here for the book swap? Well, that's wonderful. If you want to leave a book or take a book, maybe sit, read, and relax, it's all free here.
Now, I am going to take my mask off so you can perhaps hear me a little better. Those of you in the audience get to keep yours on. If you are concerned, I'm quite a ways from you. You can move to a further back table if you would like. But this is simply so that you can perhaps understand what I'm saying a little more clearly. We will be making one set of antlers per person, and we will also be hearing from Jack. Now, some of you may be wondering why you'd want to make deer antlers. I think this is an obvious question. Everyone wants to make deer antlers. But think of this. You're somewhere and you need a costume. If you put deer antlers on your head, you are in costume. If that Mexican place says free burritos for anyone with a costume, and the deer antlers are in your glove box, you are set. So we are giving you a way to forever be in costume, which I think is amazing. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take the pipe cleaners. You each should have 4 pipe cleaners. You're going to use 2 pipe cleaners on each antler. That's why you have 2 antlers. Now, when you're going to put them on your headband, think about where deer have antlers. They're a bit to the side. They're not right on the top of the head. So the way that we're going to make the antlers is take one of your 2 pipe cleaners and make it, don't fold it in the middle, fold it roughly like this. You see that one end is longer and one end is shorter. Take your pipe cleaner, put it on your headband, like that. And I'm not sure how well I'm showing in the screen, but not at all. Great. There. Okay. Take your pipe cleaner, which is bent not to be the same length. Put it over your headband where you want one antler and twist it. Twist it nice and tight on the headband because this is what is going to hold your antler to the headband. So twist it maybe 4 times or so And look, you have a long piece and you have a shorter piece. Now, you're going to take your second pipe cleaner. Is everybody okay with that first thing that looks roughly like this? Good. Now you're going to take your second pipe cleaner and you're going to decide where you want your other prong to be. Our antlers are all going to have 3 prongs. So pick a place, put your other antler on. So maybe it's going to be a little longer, maybe it's going to be a little shorter. Now you're going to twist the remainder of that pipe cleaner all the way to the bottom. Just keep twisting around. And remember, antlers do not have to be symmetrical. Deer do not have symmetrical antlers. Do they, Jack?
No, of course not.
So twist your pipe cleaner toward the bottom. If you have leftover pipe cleaner, which you probably will, go ahead and twist it back up, because you know what? Antlers are thicker at the bottom than they are at the top. We're making nice, thick bases for our antlers. So, at this point, you have something with 3 antler pieces, a tall one and 2 side ones. And there is no wrong way to do this. You just have pretty looking deer, however you did it. Now, for this next part, we're going to share. Each table has some strips of paper, and it's got 1 roll of masking tape. You're going to need pieces of masking tape to stick paper together, to stick your paper to the antlers. So get yourself some little bitsy pieces of masking tape, like an inch or a ½ inch or something. Just get yourself 4 or 5 pieces so that you're going to have them. And get yourself some of that paper, because what we're going to do now is we're going to make these antlers fatter than just the pipe cleaners. And less furry. When you've got some of that tape and your paper, what you're going to do, and you want to put it on a diagonal because you're going to wrap it up, not horizontal, so that you go around and around in circles and don't go anywhere. Imagine you are wrapping a mummy. So you tape to start your piece of paper, and then you start wrapping. Pull it fairly tight so that your antler is not like deformed and flesh-like, but it's sort of skinny and hard, like an antler. You're just going to wrap up. So you're going to do this for every one of your pipe cleaners. And if the paper breaks, start over again with a new piece of tape. If you get to the end of your antler, break the paper off and tape it in place. So I have 1 wrapped piece for one of my antlers. We're going to do that for all those little antler pieces. So there's a lot of wrapping to do with paper, and then just use the tape to stick it so it'll stay. Are there any questions about how we're wrapping antlers? If you have a question, put your hand up, and we will talk to you. Yes. You are wrapping the antlers all the way from the bottom to the top, and you're going to wrap all 3 pieces of the antlers. So if you look at this one, you're just using the tape right now just to start the piece of paper and to tape it at the end. After we do that, you are already thinking ahead to step 2. Step 2 is going to be to go back and masking tape the whole thing, because the paint will stick better to the masking tape. So first we're going to put the paper on to make them thicker and more like antlers, and then we're going to go over them with masking tape. That's a really good question. Are there any other questions? Okay. While you are wrapping antlers, I am going to see if Jack will talk to us. Jack, are you willing to talk?
Yes, I am. Is this working? Hello, can you hear me? Good. Okay. I've been invited to talk to you, and I'd like to read you the first chapter of the book by Felix Salten, who wrote Bambi in 1922 in Austria. And this is how he begins the book. It's totally different from that stupid film that Disney made. Disney is stupid. Just remember that, okay? So here we go. And remember that this is not going to be about a prince. This is going to be about a real deer and what the mother goes through. So here we go. He was born in the middle of a thicket, one of those small hidden places in the forest that appear to be open yet are shielded on all sides. The space was so small that there was barely enough room for him and his mother. Soon he stood up and swayed anxiously on his thin black back legs. He looked all around him with foggy eyes that saw nothing. Befuddled, he lowered his head and trembled a good deal, for he was still somewhat bewildered. "What a beautiful child! Caw, caw!" the magpie exclaimed. She had flown there, lured by the gasps, groans, and screams that the fawn's mother had uttered in her labor. Now the magpie perched on a nearby branch. "What a beautiful child!" she cried again. She received no answer, and yet kept busily chattering away. "It's astonishing that he can stand and walk right away. How interesting. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Why, of course, I'm still young, just 1 year young, and since I left the nest, which you perhaps know, but I think it's wonderful. A child like that, born into this world, and a second later, he can already stand. I find it remarkable. In fact, I find everything that you deers do elegant and noble. Tell me, can he run already?" "Certainly," the mother responded softly, "but you must excuse me if I'm not able to continue talking to you any longer. I've got so much to do now, and besides, I still feel somewhat weak." "Well, I wouldn't want to disturb you," the magpie said. I don't have much time myself, but most people never see anything like this. Please, I know just how much bother and trouble things are. Things are. For mothers in situations like this, the children can barely move once they are out of the egg. Oh, they just lie there helplessly in the nest and need care and attention so much. I tell you, naturally, you can't imagine how much care. It's so much work to feed them, and there's so much anxiety that goes into protecting them. Please, just think for a second how strenuous it is to fetch food for the children. At the same time, you have to make sure that nothing happens to them. They can't do a thing by themselves when you're not there to help them. Isn't that the truth? Oh, just how long does it take until they can move about? How long does it take before their feathers grow and they look somewhat respectable? Pardon me, the mother replied. I haven't been listening. The magpie flew away and thought to herself, what a stupid person. Refined, yeah, but stupid. The mother hardly noticed that the magpie had left. She continued busily cleansing her newborn child. She washed him with her tongue, which did everything all at the same time: body care, a warm massage, and tender caressing. The little fawn had stumbled a bit. Then under his mother's pushing and strokes that touched him here and there, he pulled himself together and stood still. His little red coat was somewhat rumpled and covered by fine white spots, and there was still an expression of deep sleep on his drowsy baby face. Mother and son were surrounded by hazel and dogwood bushes, black thorns and young elderberries. The tall maple, beech, and oak trees formed a green roof over the thicket, and fern fronds, wild berries, and sage sprouted from the firm dark brown soil. Down below, the leaves of the violets had already blossomed, and also those of the strawberries that nestled in the ground. Just then, the early sunlight penetrated the thick foliage like a golden thread. The entire forest resounded with myriad voices imbued by a feeling of joy. The oriole rejoiced incessantly, the doves cooed without stopping, the blackbirds whistled, the finches warbled, the chickadees chirped. In the midst of all of this music, the young jays softly uttered their cries, while the magpies quarreled with laughter. Then the pheasants joined the chorus and burst with shrill cackling cries. At times, the high-pitched shouts of the woodpecker penetrated the other voices. The call of the falcons rang shrilly and urgently over the treetops. During all of this music, the blustering chorus of the crows could be heard throughout the forest. The little one, the fawn, did not understand any of the songs and calls, not one word of the chattering and conversations. He didn't even listen to them, nor did he perceive a single one of the smells that the forest exuded. He heard only the soft brushing of his mother's tongue as it ran over his little coat while she washed him, warmed him, and kissed him. He smelled only the closeness of his mother's body. He struggled to be as near as possible to her pleasant body. Then he searched hungrily all around until he found the source of life. As the little fawn suckled, his mother continued to caress her little one. "Bambi," she whispered, and every now and then she raised her head, listened to the sounds of the forest, and sniffed the wind. Then she kissed her child again and was relieved and happy. "Bambi," she repeated, "my little Bambi." That's the first chapter of the novel, which is totally different from anything Disney ever did. And it's all about how a young fawn develops into a deer despite all the dangers of hunters in the forest who kill thousands of deers in every country where deers live. And the poor deers have to know how to navigate the forest so that they can survive. And so this story is a true story to a certain extent about what the author experienced as he himself, unfortunately, did some hunting. He was a little contradictory in his life, but he did love animals, and he was for the, he actually pleaded for a change of hunting conditions in Austria, and he also tried to show how beautiful nature is, but also how dangerous nature can be, because the animals are not always at peace with themselves, that they sometimes hunt one another down and do killing and things like that. So this is the story that that Felix Salten wrote. The author of this was a very interesting author because of his contradictions, because of the way that he tried to depict how difficult life was, but he himself, in reality, did some hunting, and he wrote this book because of the fact, because it's my interpretation that he was somewhat guilty. He felt guilty about the way he himself dealt with animals. So at this point, I'd like to stop. And if you have any questions about this book or about Bambi, or about how Bambi, how the book originated, I'd be glad to answer.
I am going to steal the mic back briefly. After you get the paper wrapped on your antlers, because I think some people are making great progress on that, what you're going to do is you're going to go back over the antlers with tape. Now, if, like me, you've made some unsightly bulges, the nice thing is that masking tape can be used to fix those bulges. Look, squish it narrower and tape it tightly, and that fat end to your antler will get a lot skinnier. So you can fix problems with masking tape. What you're going to do, however, is you are going to cover the entire antler with masking tape now. So you're going to go over the paper with masking tape, and you want to cover the whole antler. Do you know why? Because we're going to paint that antler, and the paint sticks to masking tape, and it doesn't stick well to the paper. So that's what you're going to do. Now, at the same time, if you wish, you may cover the headband with masking tape. Just wrap the headband with masking tape, so you will also be able to paint that brown. Now, if you prefer a sparkly headband in whatever color you got, don't tape it. But if you would like it to be brown like the antlers, tape the headband as well as all of your antlers with masking tape, because then we are going to paint them brown. So, when you get to the end of the paper, you know what your next job is. I would suggest that you take that shared roll of masking tape and make yourself some really long pieces, you know, maybe 6 inches or 8 inches long. And again, when you get to the end of a piece of tape, remember to start it diagonally so that it wants to go up instead of around in a circle. When you get to a place where you want to break it off, just break it off and start with a new piece of masking tape. This is not a dangerous project. There's no scissors, there's no hot glue, there's tape. Even I can manage tape without cutting my fingers. So, you've got the next piece of this to go on with, and Jack, were you taking questions or other things now?
Yeah, anybody who has any questions about the origination of Bambi and why I don't think fondly of the Disney film, please raise your hand. Okay, question. Could you? I can't hear.
The question was, do you think less fondly of Disney Bambi 1 or of the sequel?
There was no sequel. In other words, the sequel was composed of by the Disney Corporation to make more money. That's all. Basically, the first film is so bad that you can't do anything to remedy how bad the first film was, but it was in America and elsewhere. It was received favorably, but I think today, if people, I was horrified when I was asked at a meeting of professors to do a new translation about 3 years ago, and this book is based on my new translation. And when I was asked to do a translation of Bambi, I said, "Are you kidding? I would never translate such a horrible film." And the editors said to me, "Well, really, the film has nothing to do with the real book. Why don't you go and read it?" Because I had never read it. I had only seen, as an American, I had only seen the film. And so as soon as I began reading this, I realized that we needed a real translation of the novel. Even though there had been one in 1928, it was somewhat archaic. And so I did a new translation because of the fact that this is an amazing novel about how dangerous it is to live in the forest, that it's not a wonderful paradise, it's not sweet, there's no happy end for the animals. Most animals are killed by hunters. And so this book really depicts the actual lives that deer face, and to a certain extent, on a metaphorical sense, this book deals also with the killing of Jews, the killing of African Americans, the killing of minority groups by white hunters. And so it's an amazing story that people should do some historical research and try to read this book, because I think it opens up questions for us about hunting, about who should own guns, who should cultivate forests, how important forests are for us, but also how dangerous. So that's sort of my take about the situation. And I wrote an introduction to my translation, which I think explains many of these situations. Thanks for the question. Good question. Any other questions? Are there too many deer here? Yes, here.
I'd be curious to know why you hate the Disney version so much, or Disney in general.
Well, if you look at with critical eyes, okay, as a young boy, I loved the Disney films. I loved Dopey in in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But when you mature, when you grow up, and you learn to look at things a little more critically, you can see that there are certain faults in the Disney films that that were never dealt with by even up to today. For instance, the portrayal of women as Barbie dolls and as incapable of determining their own lives. Most of the Disney films are sexist. There is also a certain racism in the Disney films. So the Disney Corporation is not my friend, and I'm sure that the Disney Corporation does not like me. Any other questions?
So I was reading a little bit about deer antlers, and it's interesting to me that, as I understand it, deer lose their antlers every fall, and then they grow them again in the spring. And I started wondering, why do some deer have antlers that's so much bigger? And the book that I read said that antlers are primarily comprised of protein. So if a deer is young and it's growing, it puts its energy into its bones and getting bigger. But the older deer are already fully grown, and so that's why they make those giant big antlers. And I thought that was kind of fascinating. I mean, that the antlers don't stay there from year to year, but there's a reason that older deer have bigger antlers.
Yeah, it's interesting, and also in this book, like in the Disney film, you don't get there's a very important development in Bambi's life as he matures, and there are actually antler fights in this book. They don't kill each other, but they knock each other down and then determine who is going to be, so to speak, the father of other deer in the forest. So it is true. The antlers play an extremely important part with deer, and also not only deer, but with moose and other animals that have antlers. So it's wonderful that you are all making antlers for yourselves so you can go out and butt down anybody who bothers you.
There will be no antler fights on the Sandbox premises. What you do outside the hotel is up to you.
Any other questions?
Do you have a favorite animal, Jack?
Yes, the favorite animal in my life is a standard poodle, and his name, and he is, his name is Vinny, and he's a beer drinking guy, and he loves beer, and so not tons of beer. He never gets drunk, but he does like beer every now and then, and he is now 14 years old. 14
Wow.
years. Can anybody tell me what that is, how old 14 is in real life, in our lives? 98. Very good. For that, you get one more antler.
I didn't know you had enough paint.
So, yeah. So Vinny is an amazing dog. He is very tall. His nose goes above this table up here, and he can jump. When he wants to jump, he can jump 3 feet into the air, and sometimes it seems to be that he's flying. He's such an amazing animal. At any rate, he's very angry that I'm here because he always loves to be with me.
That is pretty incredible. Now, is anybody done with the masking tape? Because then we will talk to you about paint. If you're done with masking tape, okay, I've got a couple. Speed demons. What we're going to do, there are little cups, I think, on your table with paint in the cups. You got a paintbrush when you came in. You're going to dip that paintbrush into the little cup. Again, we're doing a lot of sharing. You're going to stipple the masking tape. Stipple means dab like this, And the reason you dab instead of painting straight is that antlers are kind of mottled. They're sort of shaded with darker and lighter patches. You'll get more of that effect putting the paint on this way. So put the paint on. You want to cover all your masking tape. It should stick to the masking tape, and it should dry really quickly. We're going to try not to get this on our fingers. If we do get it on our fingers, it's acrylic paint. It does wash out. So you can wash your hands in a sink or whatever washing hand facility you have. The paint should come right off. It should not hurt anything. It should not stain your clothes either, but let's try not to get it on the clothes and hopefully not on their hands either. So go ahead and just, when you get to the end of the masking taping, just dab that paint on, little thicker some places, little lighter other places, and you will have an antler like this at the end of your time, but it will be attached to a headband, and you'll have 2 antlers instead of just 1. If you've got a question about that, put your hand up and I'll try and answer it. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions about the painting part. That's good. Everybody now has all the information they need to make antlers. If you do need me to come and help you out, raise your hand, call, give us some type of a signal, and either I or one of the excellent Connie Sandbox people who are crafty people who know what they're doing with more than just antlers will come and assist. I have heard that poodles are one of the most intelligent animals. In fact, I think they use them for seeing eye dogs because they're smart enough to disobey. So if a person says, take me across the street and there are cars, they very sensibly don't take you across the street into the cars. Is your poodle really smart?
My poodle is smarter than I am. He gets whatever he wants. He's totally spoiled. And I must say, because of the fact that he is so smart and intelligent and is always playing tricks on me, I love him very, very much. And I appreciate the fact that he can do amazing things like jumping over fences. He can help people. He's very kind. He's the most gentle dog I've ever had. I've had another poodle many years ago, and Vinny, by the way, is his real name was going to be Vino in Italian, because I've lived a long time in Italy, and I love wine, and I drink sometimes too much wine, but I try to control myself. And my wife suggested, instead of calling Vinny Vino, we call him Vincenzo. In Italian, Vincenzo means Vinny, or Vincent in English. So yes, I think that the poodles are so smart and so interesting as dogs that their breed has been made, for instance, many types, like there's a Saint Bernard poodle, there's does anybody have another type of poodle here? What kind? Right. Right. If you're allergic to dogs, to most dogs with hair, the poodles are great because they do not cause any allergies, and that's why so many other breeds have been used form other types of, like labradoodles and so on and so forth. Any other questions about poodles?
Have you seen Bunny the poodle?
Pardon?
Have you seen Bunny the poodle?
No.
She's so smart. She presses buttons. She communicates with her
Oh my God.
owners. You should look her up if you get a chance.
Bunny the Poodle, is this a story or a film?
She's an internet famous dog.
Oh, an internet famous dog. Oh my God, I will. Bunny the Poodle.
Yep, or Bunny and her buttons.
Bunny and her button?
Yep.
Okay, what is the button?
They have buttons with a word on each one.
I see.
Adam, and she'll go and press the button. She wants to tell you if she wants to go out.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
She's so smart.
Yeah, great, great.
Now, you, I think, do you do folklore and look into the history of folk tales and things like that also, Jack?
Yes. Over the years, when I began teaching at various universities, I've taught at the University of Minnesota. I taught in the German department and cultural studies, and I also was able to convince the university to give courses on folk and fairy tales. And so I also translated the tales of the Brothers Grimm and had courses with great students at the university who studied folklore with me and have gone on to teach also at public schools or other universities. So I'm very much in tune to folklore and love teaching it and continue to write books about folk and fairy tales.
How much do you think folklore reflects real animals and behavior?
I would say that in the past, most writers who have written like animal tales or animal books, who have either taken some of the stories from the 18th, 17th, or 18th century from peasants, that they have keen eyes and they're very good, for the most part. Collectors or folklorists have written books that are very, I would say, sensitive with regard to how animals act, and also very thorough in their research to portray, with regard to portraying animals as they actually live. Now, naturally, in a lot of the fables and in a lot of the animal stories, the animals speak. They speak English, French, German, Japanese, Chinese, and so on. And we know that's not the case. But in many ways, I think that animals tend to be somewhat more humane than we humans.
I just need less than no time.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 6-7 minutes left of the activity. I know that's not a whole lot of time. You sure have a little bit of time afterwards to work, but the activity is scheduled to end in about 6 to 7 minutes. Okay.
Yes. Question over there. Over there. Question. Hello. There was a question over there.
It is. Did somebody else need paint? I've got the paint from up here. Paint, anybody? Not seeing any hands. Now, acrylic paint dries pretty fast, but I would not recommend immediately putting your antlers on your hair. You will Once they've been painted, it's going to take a little while for that paint to dry before I would recommend actually putting the headband on. And there is more paint, so please put your hands up in the air, wave a hand, and paint will come to you. I have to say, for me, one of the most interesting things about antlers and other things in animals is that they all seem to have different defenses. You know, whether it's a porcupine, these are the ones I know, and I'm not big on animals. I mean, sharks have teeth. They might not be an animal, but they bite. Dogs bite. My cats could certainly express displeasure with claws and teeth. So, what do you think is the most, skunks stink? What are some interesting animal defense mechanisms that you can call to mind?
Well, the worst type of animal is an insect called a tick.
Oh.
Oh. And Minnesota woods and forests have a lot of ticks that you have to be aware of in June, July, and August, maybe even into September. So that's my fear most of all. But there are an amazing amount of animals, as you correctly say, who have special ways of defending themselves, such as giving off poisonous odors that sometimes knock you out. So you always have to be on your toes whenever you go into the forest. I'm a New York City boy, you can probably tell from my accent. And when you go, and so I'm used to the city, I can fight off all the dangerous humans in the city, but I have a lot of trouble in nature. I love to go into nature, but I'm always a little scared.
Do you have any words of wisdom for us about nature or climate or animals, or what would you like to tell people if you could get on national television and make everybody listen, Jack?
I would say treat the forest and nature as if it were part of your family, and love it, love nature. Be aware of the fact that nature has its own ways. Respect nature. Admire nature. Don't start any fires in nature. And try to understand the fact that trees actually talk to one another, and that we should be very careful about chopping down too many trees that will cause us great difficulty in our own lives. So I love nature, and I think that we should all cherish nature as long as we have it.
And by my watch, we are technically at 3 o'clock. I may be a minute or two off. One after by Jack's watch, 3 o'clock by my Fitbit, 2:59 by my wristwatch. Okay, we're basically at the end of time. I think if you're working on stuff, you can stay a little longer, but we're kind of wrapping up the formal piece of the activity. Thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed making antler headbands. I hope you will go home and all your friends will be envious, and you can teach them how to make Bambi antler headbands. Also, I want to give a big thank you to Jack, who was so kind with my questions, who shared his book, who knows so much about animals, and I think still has panels to talk about folktales and other things. One of our guests of honor, we're very lucky to have Jack Zipes with us.